Part 71. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Enchenmi-san. Chapter 734. You don't want to silence yourself, do you? Aya glanced at him. Of course, no, but if this guy wakes up, it will be very troublesome, right? Aya didn't answer, but took out a syringe from her bag, pulled off the protective sheath, and inserted the needle into the unconscious man's bicep. What is this? Poison, Kaylan couldn't help but ask. A potion that can make people sleep peacefully for more than 6 hours. Of course, the prerequisite is that the person cannot be an enhanced person and has not received corresponding drug resistance modifications. Aya crushed the glass bubble at the end of the syringe, and the liquid stored in the glass bubble. The compressed air quickly pushed the liquid into the man's body. Judging from this man's muscle strength and ability to withstand blows, it is obvious that he has not undergone any surgery to strengthen or modify his body. However, just to be on the safe side, Kaylan took off his socks and stuffed them into his mouth, then tied up his hands and feet with plastic ties and threw them into a cubicle. To be honest, I think this plan sounds a bit unreliable. Aya walked to the window at the end of the toilet and looked down. This department store building is 22 stories high, while the Xinxing Chamber of Commerce headquarters across the street is only 8 floors. From here, you can overlook the roof of the Xinxing Chamber of Commerce headquarters. There is a helipad with an H painted on the roof, but there is no helicopter parked on it, and there are no signs of human activity nearby. Ian's plan was to swing from the top floor of the department store to the roof of the Xinxing Chamber of Commerce through a zipline, and then sneak into the Chamber of Commerce headquarters from the roof. This method is better than walking directly into the Chamber of Commerce. Has the power supply department made arrangements? Kaylan asked. Well, you can turn off the lights at any time. Aya nodded. Then I'll leave this rough work to you. Neither Asano Akira nor I carry any tools. Without saying anything, Aya quickly walked to the glass curtain wall on the far right and stretched out her hand. With the clicking sound of the machine rotating, the white and slender palm directly split into more than a dozen parts. Small and precise tools protruded from the inside of the palm and began to disassemble the piece that was taller than her body. Glass. Aya's movements were very fast. In less than 5 minutes, the entire piece of glass was separated from the curtain wall. 8 auxiliary robotic arms extending from the inside of the elbow carefully moved the glass in and leaned it against the wall on the side of the toilet. Superior. Get ready to turn off the lights. I'll count to 3. Kaylan fastened a metal safety buckle on his belt. After turning off the lights, launch the zipline immediately. 1, 2, 3. In an instant, the entire neighborhood was plunged into darkness, with only a few emergency lighting equipment using built-in power supplies still emitting a small area of light. Due to the damage to ARC's power supply line and the maintenance in the past few days, such large-scale power outages occur almost every 3 to 5 times, so it is unlikely to arouse others' suspicion. The power outage lasts only 15 seconds. After Aya said this, a steel cable was launched from her arm and fixed on the fence outside the roof of the Xinxing Chamber of Commerce headquarters. The sound of the steel cable being fired was completely obscured by the brief commotion caused by the power outage below. No one noticed that there was a black cable as thick as a thumb above their heads and between the two buildings. Asano Akira, you are the first one, Kaylan said. He was placed in the first place not only because Asano Akira is the most powerful among the 3, but also because he is equivalent to a small human sonar. If the Xinxing Chamber of Commerce arranged a secret whistle on the roof of the building, Asano Akira would be the first to can detect and deal with it. The lubricated pulley made a subtle wow sound, and in less than 5 seconds, Asano Akira had swung to the roof of the opposite building. There is no one here. After landing, Asano Akira immediately replied in the communication channel. Kaylan was second, and Aya came to the end. By the time Aya pulled back the cable, the whole neighborhood had returned to light. The card points are very accurate. Kaylan gave Aya a thumbs up. Aya restored her split prosthetic limb to its original shape and ignored Kaylan. The only flaw in this plan is that the glass curtain wall that was removed from the top floor of the department store, although people nearby generally don't look up to see it, if they look from a distance, it is actually quite conspicuous. I have notified a team on standby nearby. They will disguise themselves as repairmen and enter the men's room within 10 minutes and restore the glass curtain wall. Aya noticed Ian's eyes and said, 10 minutes. Lan wanted to say, I hope this flaw will not become the only flaw in the entire plan. However, when he thought that this sentence was strongly suspected of planting flags, he did not say it in the end. Let's go, Lan said. The three of them moved to the stairs almost silently. Asano Akira squatted down and put his palms on the ground. 2 seconds later, he nodded, there is no one behind the door, and there is no one on the floor below. People. Aya's prosthetic limb changed shape again and quickly opened the roof door. The narrow corridor was dark. Although the power supply had been restored to this block, the lights on the top floor of the Xinxing Chamber of Commerce headquarters seemed to have not been turned on before. Lan pressed a button on the outside of the sunglasses frame, and as the luster on the sunglasses lenses floated, the sunglasses instantly turned into a cleverly disguised low-light night vision device. As for the other two people, Aya's eyes have long been replaced with prosthetic eyes, which have built-in night vision capabilities, while Akira Asano does not need vision at all, so naturally he saves the trouble of equipped with night vision devices. There are more than a dozen rooms on the top floor of Xinxing Chamber of Commerce, but most of them are empty rooms with some decoration scraps and abandoned office and chair items piled inside. The walls and ceilings also completely maintain the original color of cement. There is no sign of decoration at all. It's not that the people from the Xinxing Chamber of Commerce didn't turn on the lights on the top floor, it's that there are no lights installed in these rooms at all. A swarm of wires emerged from the reserved holes in the ceiling and walls, covered in thick dust. There were no valuable clues on this floor. Lan made a downward gesture, and the three of them walked towards the stairs. But soon, Akira Asano, who was walking at the front, stopped and whispered, there is a bodyguard on the landing between the 8th and 7th floors. Lan carefully approached the stairs and looked down. That was not a bodyguard, but a fully armed guard with a fully automatic weapon in his hand. I could vaguely hear abnormal squirming sounds in his chest. Asano Akira added after getting closer. The container of the seed of corrosion. Lan frowned. If he was still suspicious before, now he has basically confirmed the fact that the Nova Chamber of Commerce is the remnant of the heretical sect. Akira Asano nodded. Want to go around? Aya asked. I'll take care of it. Lan shook his head, shook his arm slightly, and the deer hunting knife slipped out of his sleeve, and the handle wrapped with anti-slip tape fell right into his palm. The so-called perfect infiltration is just to kill everyone who sees you. P.S. My throat has been sore and itchy for 2 days in a row, and now I have a low-grade fever. I just finished typing this chapter and it measured 37.6 degrees Celsius, but my nucleic acid test was negative for 2 days in a row. I hope it's just a common cold. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chenmi-san. Chapter 735. With the reaction ability of ordinary people, the line of sight cannot catch up with the movement speed of high-level enhanced people. The guard only saw a black shadow flashing out from the top of the stairs and rushing toward him. He didn't even have time to lift his head. When he raised the gun, a huge force from his chest pushed him against the wall. It was a deer hunting knife with gray-white lines on the blade. It penetrated the guard's left chest, and about half an inch of the knife tip came out from behind. This knife not only killed the guard, but also pierced it. He killed the corrosive seed that was parasitic in the guard's body. Many tiny tentacles struggled to get out of the guard's eye sockets, nose, ear canals, and mouth, but before they could escape from the dead container, they themselves had turned into putrid pus, running along the cheeks of the corpse. Flowed down. Lan pulled out the deer hunting knife, avoiding the blood splattering from the wound, wiped the blade with the guard's clothes, and put the knife back into the sheath in his sleeve. This knife was made by Leighton after the Alexander incident. The material and forging standards are exactly the same as Asano Akira's combat knife, except that the shape has been changed to a blade length according to Ian's usage habits. A 15 cm hunting knife with extra thickness and weight on the spine and head to enhance the cutting ability. Hunting knives are generally regarded more as tools than weapons, but the knife in Ian's hand can definitely be regarded as a combat knife tailor-made for him. With the strength and speed of a high-level enhanced person, it can be used in hand-to-hand combat. Unleash the lethality of fear. Lan lowered the body leaning against the wall, groped around on his body for a while, and finally took out a work permit from his breast pocket. However, this work permit is not affiliated with the Xinxing Chamber of Commerce, but comes from a PMC organization called Black Shark Security Consulting Company. He's a mercenary, Lan said, and threw the work permit to Aya. Black Shark Security Consulting Company was founded in 919 of the New Era. It is a relatively old security contractor. It has business dealings with several large consortiums and often provides escort services for civilian transportation teams in the wilderness. Only, however, according to the clues obtained by the Security Bureau, there is no connection between them and the Xinxing Chamber of Commerce and the Tower of Babel, Aya said. Of course I know Black Shark, it is one of the largest PMC companies on Ark. If they are also the remnants of the heretical section, then the situation will be troublesome, Lan muttered. As far as he knew, Black Shark Security Consulting Company had at least 2,000 employees, including about 500 to 800 combatants. In terms of weapons, equipment, and personnel quality alone, these mercenaries were even better than the average garrison. A little stronger. This certificate is fake, Aya said suddenly. I just sent this person's personal information back to the headquarters. The headquarters said that this person was not found in the list of registered employees of Black Shark Security Consulting Company. The identification code, it's also fake. It seems like it's just a cover, Lan nodded. The three of them walked down the stairs. The corridor on the 7th floor was still dark, with only the safety exit light sign in the corner emitting a faint green light. However, there were a lot of guards in this corridor. Lan glanced over and saw that at least a dozen people had gathered, each of them holding a gun and guarding their posts without saying a word. Has the operation been exposed, Lan thought? Even if the Xinxing Chamber of Commerce is really the headquarters of the remnants of the heretical sect, then under normal circumstances the defense should not be so tight. With such a formation as if facing a formidable enemy, could it be that they already know you are being targeted? Or is it that the 15-second power outage just now blew the whistle? The situation is not optimistic. Lan looked at Aya. Do you have a weapon that can kill all these guards instantly without being noticed? If there are only half the number of guards, it would be okay. Aya shook her head. The fire control system that comes with the cyborg body can only lock on up to 7 targets at the same time. If there are more, the accuracy and stability cannot be guaranteed. Lan couldn't help but regret not bringing 33 with him. Otherwise, with his ability, he could control those inconspicuous blades and slit the throats of more than a dozen guards at the same time. Just when Lan was thinking about how to get around these guards, Asano Akira suddenly said, if Britta can get rid of the 7 guards at the farthest side, the rest can be left to me. The depth of this corridor is about 35 meters. There are a total of 13 guards guarding here. In addition to the 7 guards at the farthest, there are 6 others. The farthest person is far away from Lan and the others. The stairwell is a full 15 meters away. If Asano Akira can really kill all 6 of these people before they are noticed by these guards. Lan couldn't help but think of a famous poem, kill one person in 10 steps, but leave no trace in 1,000 miles. But when used here, it must be doubled at least 5 times, to kill 5 people in 10 steps, before it can be used correctly. How sure are you? Lan asked. More than 90%. Lan knew Asano Akira very well, and he never exaggerated. He said he was more than 90% sure, which was more than 90% sure. However, Aya turned into a gang spirit at this moment and asked, "What about the remaining 10%? The failure rate is less than 10%, not 10%, Kaylan corrected. There is no difference, Aya said. I can guarantee 100% to kill those 7 people, but you still have a chance of failure. This is no different from gambling. In my opinion, it is a 50-50 chance of success. Half failed. Did your physical education teacher teach you statistics?" Kaylan couldn't help but complain inwardly. The 10% probability of failure refers to the situation where there are enhancers above level 8 among these guards, and there are mutants in their bodies that can enhance the defense of the container, Akira Asano said. A level 8 or above enhancer must have a mutant species that can enhance the defense of the container in his body. Kaylan couldn't help but twitch his lips. Asano Akira is still too humble. In fact, you are the same if you directly say that he is 100% sure of. Okay, as usual, I'll count to 3, and you all take action at the same time, Kaylan said. The priority is to kill the guard itself. There is no need to forcefully pursue 1 to penetrate 2. If there is a surviving seed of erosion, you can do the second round after round of last hits. 1 to penetrate 2 refers to killing the container and the erosion seed in the container like Kaylan just did. This has very high requirements for the location of the attack, assuming that the core of the erosion seed is located in the abdomen of the human body. Although attacking the abdomen can be fatal, it cannot make the opponent lose the ability to move immediately. If any one of these guards fires a shot or shouts, everything will be destroyed. Late. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chenmi-san. Chapter 736. I carry 30 times the dose of active ammunition. The container that was hit has no possibility of survival due to the corrosion seeds in its body, Aya said lightly. That's the best, Kaylan said, taking out the deer hunting knife from his sleeve, and at the same time holding a pistol inserted under his ribs. He himself was the last insurance. If Asano Akira and Aya appeared, if he made any mistake, he could either throw the deer hunting knife as a throwing weapon, or he could directly choose to draw a gun and shoot. However, the latter was the last resort. Even if a silencer was installed, the gunshot would not be heard in a semi-closed environment like the corridor. It's also very obvious. Those puff sounds made by silenced weapons in movies and TV dramas that are lighter than human farts are the result of a certain degree of artistic processing. Asano Akira stood up, holding the handle of the knife tightly with one hand and holding the scabbard with the other. I raised a mechanical arm and curled her fingers slightly. 1, 2, 3. 7 needle-shaped bullets silently shot out of Aya's palm, hitting the 7 guards at the farthest end of the corridor. At the same time, Asano Akira had disappeared. Aya could only see a gray sword light flashing between the 6 people like running water. The 6 guards froze in an instant. The next second, the 13 people had fallen to the ground. On the ground. Whether it was Aya's shooting or Asano Akira's close attack, the angle and location of the attack were very particular. These 13 people did not fall directly to the ground and make a sound that was enough to alarm the people downstairs. Instead, they fell to the ground first. On one side, he leaned against the wall and slowly slid to the ground, minimizing the noise that might be made if he fell to the ground. These people all have the seeds of erosion in their bodies, and there are only 3 left alive. Akira Asano did not sheath the sword, but inserted it into the chest of the nearest corpse. He had just cut off the opponent's right ankle in an instant, and then sealed his throat with a sword, but he did not kill the corrosive seed parasitic in the man's chest at the same time. There's no rush to make up for it. Kaylan also walked to a corpse. The fatal wound on this corpse was also located in the throat, but his chest was bulging as if an alien larva was about to burst out. Kaylan squatted down and stabbed the deer hunting knife in with his backhand. Blood mixed with pus spurted out. Fortunately, Kaylan was able to dodge quickly, but Aya, who was following him, was sprayed all over half of her body. For a moment, Aya felt that this person did this on purpose. The last corroded seed that entered the period of rapid transformation finally managed to break free from the container, but what greeted it was a poisonous blade. After the core was penetrated, this corroded seed Zhong only struggled for a moment and then lost all signs of life. Perfect infiltration. Looking at the corpses scattered on the ground, Kaylan nodded with satisfaction. These people all have the seeds of erosion in their bodies. From a certain point of view, they cannot be treated as human beings at all, so killing these guards will not cause any psychological burden to Kaylan and the others. There is even a sense of pleasure that comes from letting out a bad breath. For the heretical sect, Kaylan only hates it from the bottom of his heart. It is for this reason that even if he knew that the undead crew would be planning some ulterior secrets, he would not follow the Prophet's advice and join the section in the camp of the heretical sect. Perhaps, some people will think that real villains are better than hypocrites. However, let's not mention whether the undead crew members are hypocrites. At least the heretical sect cannot be regarded as real villains. They have lost even their most basic humanity. The entire heretical sect has been completely reduced to a tool to satisfy the Prophet's personal desires. All the promises are lies. He packages curses and death as God's favor and distributes them to everyone in the sect except him. Everyone except those who are blind and ignorant have no doubts about the teachings of the Prophet. Those who pursue strength long for his gifts. Even if the Prophet is dead, these people still have not escaped from this quagmire, but have fallen deeper and deeper into it. Kaylan stepped over the corpses and couldn't help but have some doubts in her heart. These low-level believers may have been too brainwashed, but those who have the ability to lead the remnants of the heretical sect must be able to see through the lies of the Prophet. It's just that either because of their own desires or because of coercion, they had to pay allegiance to the Prophet. But the question is, now that the Prophet is dead, they are still organizing such a meaningless attack. For what purpose? Revenge the Prophet? What a joke. Those people probably wanted to kill the Prophet and replace him. It was impossible for them to avenge such a leader and put themselves in a dangerous situation. What was their motive? Only then did Kaylan realize that from the beginning, they had not figured out the motive of these remnants' attack. Their actions are organized and premeditated, and they have complete logistical support and intelligence chains. The IQ of the mastermind behind the scenes is definitely not low, but the key is that this kind of thing is not something that a person with a normal IQ would do. If you were to think about it from another perspective, if you were the leader of the remnant party of the heretic sect, what Kaylan would have to do now would be to hide his identity as much as possible, lie dormant, and preserve his strength. At the same time, he would find a way to send people to search for those things left by the Prophet. Knowledge and property, and take it for themselves instead of launching these terrorist attacks like those extremists of the old era. It makes no sense at all. Just when Kaylan was thinking hard about the strangeness, an unexplained heart palpitation suddenly appeared. He subconsciously turned around and quickly took a few steps out. A headless corpse struggled to get up from the ground. A dozen transparent tentacles emerged from the severed neck, twisting and dancing in mid-air. Ian's eyes moved to the chest of the corpse. There was an incision that was so deep that the bone could be seen. He couldn't help but frown. Did Asano Akira miss? I just cut out the core of this container, Akira Asano said softly. It's weird. Just one more stab. Kaylan threw the deer hunting knife in his hand hard, and the tip of the knife pierced directly into the cluster of tentacles until the handle was gone. But the erosion seed in front of him did not die, and even the tentacles that came into contact with the blade melted into the stalagmite fragments showed no signs of scorching and necrosis as they should have. Stalagmite fragments failed? No, it's not the stalagmites' problem. The problem lies with this eroding species. Aya raised her hand and penetrated the body with 3 metal needles, but it also had no effect. For this erosion species, stalagmite fragments and active ammunition do not seem to be able to cause harm to it. It means, the two currently known restraint methods have all failed. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chen San. Chapter 737. This is impossible, even if it is an SP-type mutant, the active ammunition cannot be completely ineffective. Aya's face was full of confusion and surprise. Is this monster not a seed of erosion? Be careful. Ian's expression suddenly became serious. He held guns with both hands, and his crosshairs followed the corpse staggering in the corridor. Not only Lan, but also many military soldiers, security agents, and even armed personnel from some civil organizations who had come into contact with the seed of corrosion began to have a feeling that this kind of disease was completely helpless when it first appeared. The terrifying monster does not seem so scary now. In the eyes of these people, the corrosion seed is no longer an invincible monster, but a biochemical weapon created by the Alpha civilization and abused by the heretical sect. Even in the eyes of some veterans, the seed of corrosion is just a beast with relatively powerful combat capabilities. But this understanding is based on the premise that humans have perfect restraint methods against the seeds of erosion. Whether it is active cells extracted from flesh-eating worms or stalagmites brought back by Lan from the underwater caves of Wyoming Island, these monsters can be easily killed. This is like a primitive man who is also a tiger but only has simple stone tools in his hands. They will be afraid of it, but for modern people with advanced fully automatic firearms, killing this tiger is just a matter of gently pulling the trigger. As long as you don't let the tiger get close, no matter how fast it moves, no matter how sharp the claws are, they cannot pose any threat to humans. Another point is that as the research on erosion seeds becomes more and more in-depth, people know more and more about this kind of biological weapons. The biggest source of fear is the unknown. Without knowing anything, an elusive mouse hiding in the dark can bring far more fear to humans than a venomous snake exposed to bright light. But if one day, the monster that is already known to humans mutates, and the restraint methods that could easily kill it are no longer effective, then everything will return to the original starting point. Just imagine, smallpox breaks out again in the human world. Humans use vaccines to fight it according to the method thousands of years ago, but they are horrified to find that people who have been vaccinated cannot acquire any immunity. When the building built by experience, when it collapsed, all that was left to people was helplessness and panic. At this time, the manipulated corpse suddenly staggered and pounced on the corpse of another guard. After the squirming tentacles reached the other corpse, they immediately went crazy like a shark smelling the smell of blood. The ground jumped up and started eating. The feeding process of these tentacles made Lan and Aya feel numbness in their scalps. The tentacle's surface first split into many tiny tentacles, and then these tentacles penetrated the skin of the corpse like steel needles and penetrated deeply into flesh and blood. Immediately afterwards, a highly corrosive digestive juice was secreted from the surface of these small tentacles, turning the corpse's flesh and blood into balls of purple pus, which was finally absorbed by the mucous membranes on the tentacles and tentacle surfaces. In the blink of an eye, one arm of the corpse was swallowed by these tentacles, and not even the bones were left. "It's eating," Aya said with some uncertainty. "Is it because the original container didn't provide enough nutrients?" "I don't know." Lan shook his head. "If the special weapons and active ammunition in your hands can't have an effect on it, does it mean that we can't kill it at all?" Aya's eyes showed a trace of unwillingness. "That's not necessarily true. Perhaps this is a mutant species that we have never discovered before," Lan whispered. "When Asano Akira killed it just now, it may have triggered some kind of stress effect, which caused it produces an antibody that can resist the active cells of the flesh-eating worm. But if it is still an erosive species, I think the active cells are still toxic to it. It's just a matter of dose. I have 260 units of active bullets left. Do you want to give it a try?" Aya asked. "Don't worry, try to figure out the location of this mutant's core. Directly firing active bullets into the core will definitely have a better effect than hitting those tentacles." "That's right," Aya nodded, but how can you find the location of its core? Is it possible to cut it open with a knife? Speaking of this, Aya couldn't help but look at Asano Akira, who was holding a knife on guard. Aya knew Asano Akira's strength, and she even suspected that this man who looked delicate and frail had the ability to fight against SP-type mutants. Can you hear it? Kaylan also looked at Asano Akira. The core of the erosion seed is equivalent to the human heart. Although there will not be such an obvious beating sound, the nutrients it takes in from outside the body will gathering in the core, especially in the eating state. You just need to find the place with the highest density in this guy's body. Akira Asano's special ability can not only be used as a human radar and sonar, but can also be used as a substitute for B ultrasound or even nuclear magnetic resonance. However, Asano Akira slowly shook his head and said, "I didn't find it. The density of every part of its body is almost the same. The blood flow absorbed by the tentacle mucous membrane flows throughout its body. The density is the same. It flows all over the body." After hearing this result, Kaylan couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. Could this mean that there is no core in the body of this corrosive seed? After the death of the host, regardless of whether the erosion seeds in the body are fully developed or not, they will quickly change from the parasitic stage to the acute transformation stage. As an independent living entity, the erosion seeds in the acute transformation stage and mature stage must exist in the body. Nuclear. Perhaps some of the seeds of erosion will stay in the container after entering the maturity stage out of disguise, and continue to maintain a symbiotic relationship, but there will never be any seeds of erosion that will remain after the death of the container. It has not entered the emergency period for a long time. If it fails to condense a nucleus within 15 minutes, it will be equivalent to a fetus that died during childbirth and will die together with the container. This probability is very low. At least there are no more than 5 recorded examples in the files of the Security Bureau. From a certain point of view, the seed of erosion cannot enter the acute transformation stage from the parasitic stage, and the probability is even higher than that of pregnant women in this era having dystocia. The probability is still small. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Enchenmi-san. Chapter 738. You mean it doesn't have a core in its body? Aya looked shocked. Is this thing really not a seed of erosion? At this moment, the flesh on the chest of the corpse occupied by the tentacles suddenly cracked open, and a new human arm came out of the corpse's chest. Although the skin of this newbie's arm was very pink and still adhered to the mucus and bloodshot threads on the surface of the tentacles, Kaylan was surprised to find that the length, diameter, bone structure, and even the division of muscles of this arm, they are exactly the same as the arm that those tentacles just ate. Swallowed, fused, regenerated. He couldn't help but think of the strange scene he had seen under the sea. Countless giant nautiluses pounced on the monster that the Alpha civilization called the fusion that ran out of the abyss hatchery. Although the attacks of these nautiluses were very fierce, and once the fusion's several tentacles tore and bruised the body, but the size difference between the two was too huge. The wounds that the giant nautilus could cause to the fusion body could only be regarded as flesh wounds at best. And every attack of the fusion body can kill at least one giant nautilus. It was a fight between giant beasts in the deep sea, and every frame was thrilling. Even though more than a year had passed, Kaylan still remembered it fresh when he recalled it. As time goes by, more and more giant nautiluses are killed and devoured by the fusion, and after eating those giant nautiluses, many and giant nautiluses quickly grow on the surface of the fusion's tentacles. Very similar barbed spines. There is no doubt that while devouring prey, this creature is also stealing the prey's genes, fusing and editing them into its own genetic fragments, actively inducing mutations. The scene in front of me now is simply like that day under the sea. This moment is exactly like that time. Kaylan couldn't help but murmured. What did you say? Aya glanced at him and asked aloud. We are in trouble. This thing may be a fusion. Ian's tone was a little heavy. If Kaylan was given another chance, he would never choose to take the risk of sneaking into the hatchery at the bottom of the abyss, and he would definitely not be willing to face the fusion that had power that was almost comparable to that of the prehistoric species. But now, what appeared in front of them was most likely a larva of a fusion body. Fusion? What is fusion? Aya asked again. None of the agents of the Security Bureau could return from the undersea city alive. Naturally, they had no idea about the undersea city and the abyss hatchery. What kind of thing is entrenched inside? It is a biochemical weapon developed by the Alpha civilization on the basis of the seed of corrosion. What you said is at least half correct. It is indeed not a seed of corrosion. If you insist on saying that it is different from the seed of corrosion, what is the difference between it and the seed of corrosion? As for the relationship, it is probably the relationship between a donkey and a mule, Kaylan said. Donkeys and mules? Are you saying, this kind of monster is the result of a cross between the seed of erosion and other creatures? But, doesn't the reproduction method of the seed of erosion rely on assimilating the cells of other creatures? Doesn't it still have the ability to reproduce sexually? Aya said blankly. No. It's not the kind of hybridization you think of, but a fusion method similar to gene editing, Kaylan said. If the information I obtained is correct, this monster is composed of the seed of erosion, and it is the fusion of two artificial creatures, the flesh-eating worm. It's no wonder that active ammunition can't cause any harm to it. The opponent itself is fused with the genes of the flesh-eating worms, and the active cells of the flesh-eating worms are naturally no longer toxic to it. Seeds of erosion and flesh-eating worms. Aya looked at Kaylan with some disbelief, and then at the monster that was devouring the corpse. The latter is not equivalent to the poison for the former. You have to ask the Alphas about this. In short, they have successfully integrated these two incompatible creatures. You should know that I once explored the undersea city located on the bottom of the Middle Sea, right? I know. Aya nodded slightly, but the records related to it have been erased by the people above. I can't find any clues now. In the center of the undersea city, there is an abyss named Hatchery by the Alpha people. At the bottom of the abyss, dormant is a fusion body that is countless times larger than the thing in front of you. Kaylan knew that the matter is no longer a secret to the Undead Crew Association, and there is no need for him to continue to hide it. Instead of making up a bunch of lies to deal with Aya, it would be better to tell the other party the real situation clearly. Then do you know how to kill this kind of monster? Aya asked eagerly. The size and strength of that thing is probably no less than that of the Great Desolate Seed. Do you think, with our individual abilities, we can kill the prehistoric seed? Kaylan asked rhetorically. Although the monster in front of them is just a larva suspected of being a fusion body, judging from the physical strength of the seed of corrosion, without their restraint weapons, the three of them can do nothing about it with their methods. If there was a blasphemer mecha here, Kaylan would like to test how strong this monster's defense is, but now, he has no idea of fighting it. Then, how did you survive that time? Aya asked. I escaped relatively quickly, and with some luck, I was teleported from the undersea city to another place. Don't ask me about the specific process of teleportation. I also want to know what happened at that time. Kaylan, he bit his back molars and took a step back calmly. Then what should we do now? Should we ask the military for support? If we have battleship level firepower, we may be able to destroy this monster. After all, it looks like it is still in its infancy. Aya made a suggestion. This is probably the only way, but doing so will probably alert the remnants of the heretical sect in the Chamber of Commerce headquarters. Can you guarantee that they only have this fusion? Even the guard guarding the corridor has a fusion coming out of his body. What kind of trump card does the big boss of the Xinxing Chamber of Commerce have in his hand? Kaylan doesn't dare to think about it. He is not worried about his own safety, but if the other party chooses to fight to the death, I am afraid that the entire economic development zone will turn into hell. But the terrible thing is that Kaylan still has no way to ask ordinary people in the development zone to evacuate here in advance. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chen San. Chapter 739. Ignore it for now, Kaylan suddenly said. It seems to be addicted to devouring corpses, so let it stay here to dine and we will continue to implement the original plan. What did you say? Aya looked at Kaylan in shock, as if she couldn't understand why Kaylan would propose such a bold plan. Leave this dangerous monster here and continue to infiltrate and search the Xinxing Chamber of Commerce. Is this guy crazy? For this fusion to grow into what it looks like in the undersea hatchery, it needs a huge amount of nutrients, and here are all human corpses. Even if it absorbs a large amount of human genes, the degree of mutation will not be too exaggerated. Compared with the indigenous creatures of Alpha Planet, human beings are too weak. The only thing to note is that this thing may gain intelligence. Acquiring wisdom, this is too impossible. Since it can perfectly copy a human arm, it shouldn't be difficult to perfectly copy a human brain, Kaylan said, but I think that a fusion body with the same intelligence as a human being would be a member of the Undead Crew Association. Those old monsters should be very interested. When he said this, he did not consider that he was also a member of the Undead Crew Club. Although he has inherited the fifth Pope seat, Kaylan always feels that he is like an outsider compared with the original members. In other words, a clown, a puppet being manipulated. The three of them began to retreat slowly. The fusion larva did not pay attention to them, but pounced on the corpses of the guards and continued to feast. Let's go. After being almost 10 meters away from the fusion larvae, Kaylan took a deep breath, turned around and left. As for the deer hunting knife that was still stuck in his body, Kaylan still had a spare weapon on him anyway, and it wouldn't be too late to get it after the operation was over. But at this moment, in the warehouse on the first floor of Xinxing Chamber of Commerce, the watch on the wrist of one of the two strong men sitting opposite each other suddenly vibrated, and the dial also lit up red. Red signal. Another strong man was startled. He put out most of the cigarette butt in his hand on the table and grabbed the weapon leaning on the side. What's the number? Seed number 4 is out of the container. The strong man with the watch stared at his wrist and said, according to the timetable, the seed in No 4's body will take at least a month and a half to mature. Could it be that number 4 was killed? The seeds were forced into a period of rapid change. Another strong man's eyes suddenly jumped wildly. Is there an invasion? He subconsciously wanted to press the alarm device placed not far away, but his wrist was tightly held by his companion. You. The strong man who was stopped was stunned for a moment, but after he and his companion looked at each other, they read the unspoken code in the other person's eyes. If the alarm device is pressed, the entire Chamber of Commerce headquarters will immediately begin to implement the dismemberment plan. Their boss will choose to break through forcefully under the cover of the Chamber of Commerce's armed forces, and the two of them will become abandoned. Son. Moreover, both of them knew what was in the two syringes that the boss handed them. After injecting those things, even if they were not killed on the spot by the agents of the Security Bureau, the two of them would still be alive. The time will not exceed 3 days. They had participated in the live experiment of this thing, and had seen with their own eyes the painful struggle of the experimental subjects injected with the trial version of the medicine before their death. Rather than being counterattacked by the side effects of this thing, dying in the battle was actually a pleasure. What's more, Boss also asked them to release the thing kept in the basement after injecting the medicine. Even if Boss promised that the thing wouldn't eat them, this was still an extremely risky job. But no matter what the situation is, as long as they press the alarm device, it means that the countdown of the two people's lives is about to begin. The box containing the syringe was placed on the low folding table between the two of them, and beside it were piles of cigarette butts and empty beer cans. Both of them looked at the box in unison, their heavy breathing echoing in the warehouse. Now, what are we going to do? Asked the strong man who initially planned to press the alarm device. Maybe, there are just some problems with the experimental steps, and maybe the maturity time of the fourth seed has been advanced. The strong man with the watch let go of his companion's wrist, grabbed the gun thrown under the table, and gently he pulled the gun bolt lightly and said, "It would be too reckless to press the alarm device directly. At least, we have to figure out the situation first." He glanced at the walkie-talkie placed next to the beer can, hesitated for a few seconds, then picked it up and stuck it on his shoulder. As soon as the switch was turned on, a large amount of harsh current noise poured out from the earpiece. Due to some special reasons, a large number of electromagnetic signal jammers are installed in the basement and first floor of Xinxing Chamber of Commerce. Radio communication equipment cannot be used on these two floors, although the watch on the strong man's hand looks like it is a technological product of human civilization, but in fact the internal chip comes from the relics of Alpha civilization. Apart from the outer shell and display screen, this is completely a creation of Alpha civilization. Its function is to monitor those parasitic parasites. The growth of the seeds inside the container. This thing follows a completely different technological route from humans, so electromagnetic signal jammers will not have any impact on it. The two of them walked out of the warehouse without saying a word until they were only 10 steps away from the stairs. They were out of the range of the electromagnetic jammer, and the current noise from the walkie-talkie receiver also completely disappeared. However, they did not consult the guards about the situation, as the second and third figures in the Xinxing Chamber of Commerce besides the boss, they knew very well what the seed was. If the fourth seed really broke away from the container, then it will immediately attack the surrounding prey to meet its own needs for nutrients and evolution, but they did not hear any gunshots from upstairs just now. This means that the number 4 seed, the living people around, have probably been killed by it. They didn't notify other people in the Chamber of Commerce. They didn't want to make too much noise before they figured out the situation. As for boss, he should be in a dormant state at this time. If no one wakes him up, he wouldn't wake up if he forced his way into his basement bedroom. Boss is probably still unaware of what is happening in the Chamber of Commerce building now. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chen-Mi-san. Chapter 740. The two walked up to the second floor side by side, and the guard guarding the stairs on the second floor looked very surprised when he saw them, and asked, "Instructor, Deputy Instructor, why are you here? And, you still have a gun? Yes, what's going on?" "It's okay. The limelight has been tight recently. The boss asked us to be more careful, so we'll come over for inspection." The strong man with the watch pretended to be relaxed and said, "You didn't find anything unusual, right?" "No," the guard immediately reported, "but there was a brief power outage in our neighborhood a few minutes ago, which lasted about 10 seconds. It was restored soon." "There was a power outage just now," another strong man, the man called the deputy instructor by the guards, had a suspicious look on his face. "It can't be considered an abnormal situation. The power supply system near the disaster area has been seriously damaged. The official announcement said that people are being sent for emergency repairs. This has happened almost every day in the past few days. Everyone has become accustomed to it," the guard said. "Well, this is normal," the instructor nodded, "but when the power was cut off, did you hear some strange sounds?" He paused, then added, "Especially from upstairs." "When there was a power outage, there was a strange sound." The guard thought for a moment and shook his head, "No. When the power was out just now, the horns of cars on the street outside were blaring, almost covering up all the sounds. Stay. Even if there is any sound, we can't hear it." As the guard spoke, he couldn't help but glance upstairs and asked in a low voice, "Instructor, did something happen above?" "I told you it's okay, don't think too much." The deputy instructor stepped forward and patted the guard on the shoulder. "The boss just told us that the brothers have worked hard during this period, and the allowance at the end of the month will be doubled. In addition, those who perform well will be selected into the next batch of seeds." Really, when he heard that the monthly allowance was doubled, The guard's eyes lit up, but after hearing the second half of the sentence, he stood up straight in an instant. Well, work hard, and you all have a chance to be selected. The normally unsmiling assistant instructor showed a rare smile, which filled the guard's eyes with fire. You stupid person. The deputy instructor encouraged this subordinate, but he had a completely different idea in his heart. As the executors of the plan, they naturally knew better than these guards selected from devout believers much more, but the more they know, the faster their faith crumbles. Not only them, even the middle-level cotters of the heretical sect, except for the black bishops and a very small number of psychopaths, the vast majority of people do not believe in the teachings of the heretical sect at all. They join the heretical sect, or they are forced to survive in order to survive, or they want to use the power of heretical sects to achieve their own goals and satisfy their own desires. If anything happens, report to me immediately. After leaving these words, the instructor walked past the guard. Yes, the guard's answer was resounding. The two of them walked until they were more than 10 meters away from the guard, and then they talked in a voice that the guard could not hear. Is the fourth seed leaving the container related to the power outage just now? No way, it's probably just a coincidence. The other person shook his head slightly. The power has been cut off every now and then in the past few days, and I haven't seen any abnormal reactions from those seeds. Yes, I hope I'm overthinking it. The assistant instructor nodded. By the way, if there is really a problem with the experiment and the fourth seed matures early, do we need to notify the boss? Of course. The instructor frowned. Besides boss, who else do you think can control that thing? Besides, this is an unplanned incident, and the responsibility is not yours or mine. I don't think boss will be blamed on us. Actually, I'm still a little worried. After taking a few steps forward, the assistant instructor added, not long ago, the people in Group 6 had a car accident outside. Although the people in Group 4 and Group 8 quickly got rid of the corpses were brought back to the headquarters and processed without exposing the parasitic things in their bodies to public view, but their behavior was too abrupt. I think it is likely to attract the attention of the Security Bureau. Maybe, among those who maintain order among the traffic control personnel, there is a secret agent planted by the Security Bureau. You're a little too worried. You probably didn't sleep well after the failed attack, and you have a bit of a neurasthenia, right? I see you have a lot of dark circles under your eyes. The instructor glanced at his companion strangely. You really want to? Speaking of this matter, there is a medical room in our Chamber of Commerce headquarters, and a fully functional medical cabin. This information is publicly registered and can be found by the Security Bureau. And the surrounding affairs. The nearest hospital at the discovery site is 4 to 5 kilometers away. Isn't it normal to bring the seriously injured back to the Chamber of Commerce for rescue? Why did it attract the attention of the Security Bureau? No. I just have a very uneasy premonition, and I can't explain why. The assistant instructor said with a troubled face. Anyway, we'd better be careful. It's true to be careful, but we need to be careful about the fourth seed, not the people from the Security Bureau. If we are taken as prey by that thing, we may not even have a chance to wake up the boss. The instructor has much longer qualifications than the associate instructor, and he has participated in many more experiments. He watched the first and second seed cultivation programs be completed with his own eyes, and this associate instructor was transferred here from another branch only after the start of the third training plan. Although he knew the horror of seeds, he had never actually seen a mature seed leaving the container. Well. The assistant instructor nodded, looking a little nervous. Although both of them hold guns in their hands and have active ammunition in their magazines, they both know in their hearts that this thing is just a prop for emboldening their courage, and it can be used to control subordinates who are parasitic with ordinary corrosive seeds. But if it is a seed, active ammunition cannot cause any damage to it. The only one who can handle this situation is the mysterious boss. To be honest, I really hope this thing is malfunctioning. The instructor patted the watch on his wrist, which was still flashing red light. When he was talking to the guard just now, he deliberately rolled up his sleeves. He stood down and put his arm to the side of his body, just to cover up the constantly flashing red light. Has this type of thing ever malfunctioned before? There has never been. P.S. Thanks to Kongtong Jimei for the 1500 starting coins. Alien Relic Hunter author, and Chen-Mi-san. Chapter 741. Damn. The assistant instructor cursed in a low voice, "Damn Alpha, damn. Damn great God." He cursed the second half of the sentence in his heart. It's not that he hasn't seen the so-called miracles, but he is much clearer than those blind and ignorant believers. He knows very well what happens to those who gain power from gods through rituals. The ending. He was lucky. After retiring from the field force, he worked as a mercenary for another 6 years until he was attacked and captured by a group of heretical sect troops in the wilderness during a mission. According to the way the heretical sect treats prisoners, those who are willing to devote their loyalty to him and the prophet will be killed on the spot or used as food for flesh-eating worms, while those who are willing to join a heretical sect will most likely be sent to serve as slaves after passing a physical examination. A parasitic vessel for the seed of corrosion. And because he had some commanding skills in small team operations, he avoided the fate of being parasitized, although a fatal curse was planted in his body. As long as he did not rebel, this curse would never take effect. As for the fate of those who are used as containers, the longest parasitic period of the erosion seed is just over a year. If this person is strong enough and provides enough nutrients to the erosion seed, then the erosion seed will be there. After being completely mature, he breaks out of the container. If this person cannot provide enough nutrients to the seeds of erosion, then after the container is completely drained, he will die together with the seeds of erosion in his body. These guards within the Xinxing Chamber of Commerce have only recently been inoculated with seed of corrosion cells. They have at most 1 year left. Of course, in the eyes of the boss, these people are just consumables. Half a year is still 1 year. Years, in fact, there is not much difference. As for why they wanted to attack the material escort convoy in the disaster-stricken area, this was entirely to interfere with the official line of sight of ARC. The main purpose of the Xinxing Chamber of Commerce's existence is to cultivate seeds, but the process of cultivating seeds requires a large number of living people to serve as seedbed and feed. If more people disappear inexplicably, it will naturally cause security problems. Bureau and even the attention of the Undead Crew Association. In order to ensure the confidentiality of this plan, they can only find ways to draw the attention of the Security Bureau and the Undead Crew Association to other things. If they can make those agents and soldiers exhausted, then the Xinxing Chamber of Commerce will become much safer. If you want to put out a fire, one way is to put a bigger fire next to it, or even better, a big explosion that will burn out the oxygen in the air instantly. The mobile power of the Security Bureau and the military is equivalent to the oxygen that can support combustion. It's just that they did well in the previous attacks, but this time, they unfortunately overturned. Perhaps the previous successes had made them paralyzed and careless. Not only did they overturn this time, but they also left behind a large number of clues, so that the Xinxing Chamber of Commerce instantly became in danger. The person who planned the attack had been thrown into the basement by the boss to feed the pet, but as the person's deputies, the two of them were lucky enough to come back with their lives. Speaking of which, the deputy instructor suddenly stopped. If someone really invades. He only spoke half of his words, but his companions already understood what he meant. The real strength of the two of them is only level 3 enhanced people. To put it bluntly, if they really want to take action, the two of them may not be able to defeat those subordinates who are containers. If someone really invades the Chamber of Commerce headquarters, and killing the number 4 seed and the nearby guards showed that the invader was very strong. Without that potion, the two of them were definitely no match for each other. Okay, go get those 2 syringes, I'll wait for you here. The instructor thought for a while and nodded. At this point, there is no way for the two of them to turn back. Even if ARC is willing to let the two of them go, the curse buried in their bodies will not let them go. This kind of curse will not kill people immediately, but will first give the cursed person extremely powerful vitality and recovery ability. This recovery ability is so strong that even if the heart is exploded, it can grow in just a few seconds. When the second heart comes, even if you use a gun to make a hole in the forehead, you can't kill it. This step is to prevent the cursed person from being unable to bear the torment that follows and choosing to commit suicide. What follows is an excruciating pain that is enough to cause a mental breakdown. The assistant instructor turned back, and not long after, he came back with the metal box and stuffed a syringe into his companion's hand. "I hope this thing will never be used." The instructor with the watch glanced at the syringe in his hand, stuffed it into the medical bag he carried, and put it together with the stimulants and hemostatic agents. At the same time, in the dusty utility room on the 7th floor of the Chamber of Commerce headquarters, Kaylan and the other two squatted behind the door, listening to the creepy eating sounds of the fusion larvae in the corridor, while whispering local and external security bureau personnel were on the phone to discuss follow-up plans. According to Ian's original idea, he planned to directly transfer a medium-sized battleship over, then let Ark directly open the top plate, and the battleship above would directly bombard the headquarters of the Xinxing Chamber of Commerce with plasma weapons, merging the entire headquarters with this one. The body rose together, but in doing so, there was an unavoidable problem. Although plasma weapons can achieve scalpel-like precision strikes, the spread of heat cannot be controlled. Even if the bombardment lasts only a tenth of a second, the ground in the neighborhood around the Xinxing Chamber of Commerce will be heated to a high temperature of hundreds of degrees. Based on the average population density of this economic development zone, there will be at least tens of thousands of people in this dangerous area. If you include the attendees of the traditional ethnic costumes exhibition, the number will be even larger. They do not have any protective equipment, and they are not enhanced or modified people. They are instantly thrown into an environment of several hundred degrees Celsius. Even if they are not cooked by a mature person, they will suffer extremely severe burns. If you want to avoid this situation, you can only send people to evacuate the people in nearby neighborhoods in advance, but doing so will undoubtedly provide the remnants of the heretical sect in the Chamber of Commerce with time to destroy evidence. Is it worth sacrificing tens of thousands of people for a piece of evidence that may not exist? Kaylan knew that if it were other people from the undead crew who made this decision, they would most likely not hesitate, but how could he not treat tens of thousands of people as nothing? He was once an ordinary person and he knew exactly what it felt like. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chenmi-san. Chapter 742. Perhaps, can we find a reason, Aya whispered, for example, stage a scene where a dangerous element sneaks into the neighborhood, and then uses this as a reason to ask people to evacuate. It won't work. Kaylan shook his head. Let's not talk about whether doing this will alert the people of the Xinxing Chamber of Commerce. If the other party's important figures also run out among the evacuated people, wouldn't our work be in vain? You can't let people surround the Xinxing Chamber of Commerce and only let everyone except them evacuate, right? By doing this, wouldn't it be clear to them that the people we want to arrest are them? It's almost impossible to evacuate people from the neighborhood without the Xinxing Chamber of Commerce being aware of it, Aya said with a hint of anxiety in her tone. Kaylan and the others originally planned to put aside the matter of the fusion body and find out the someone behind the scenes who was hiding inside the Xinxing Chamber of Commerce, but the problem was that on the 6th floor of the Chamber of Commerce, they didn't know how to deal with it at all. Can't get down. The 6th floor of the Xinxing Chamber of Commerce looks like a dormitory for employees of the Chamber of Commerce from the outside, but this is actually just a disguise for the outermost circle of rooms. Behind the thin wall of the disguised room is a tightly guarded biochemical laboratory. Countless glass jars are piled up in the empty hall, and there is a person in each glass jar. According to the information obtained by Asano Akira, these people are still alive, but their heartbeat frequency is extremely low. They should be trapped in a trap, in a state similar to hibernation or suspended animation. But this is not the key. The key is that the defense on this floor is many times stronger than that on the 7th floor. Not only are the corridors full of armed guards, but the ceiling is full of cameras and remote-controlled machine guns. There are almost no blind spot. Even a perfect individual like Marshall, who has done telekinesis experiments in vivo, or Kaylan, who still possesses a living body armor, cannot instantly eliminate all the guards and at the same time destroy the remote control of the almost ubiquitous camera. Machine gun. It is not that they have not considered bypassing this floor from the outside of the building, but through the observation of external street cameras, it seems that the Xinxing Chamber of Commerce has been transformed into a fortress very early, and all the windows and glass curtain walls are simply inaccessible from the outside. After being dismantled, except for the main entrance and the roof, if you want to enter the building, you can only use violent means. It's not like they haven't thought about another power outage. However, according to the reconnaissance results of the microdrone, the entire 6th floor, including the biochemical laboratory, monitoring devices, and remote-controlled machine guns, all use independent power supply systems. Even if an entire neighborhood loses power, they won't be affected in any way. In the corridor outside, the sound of flesh and blood being torn apart made Kaylan a little irritated. When those corpses were eaten clean by the fusion body, it would probably be their turn. This situation is simply a dilemma. Outside the utility room where the three of them were hiding, a mechanical spider was attached to the wall. 4 pairs of red composite cameras were like the eyes of real spiders, tightly locking the bodies of the fusion larvae. This is a reconnaissance microdrone equipped with Aya's cybernetic body. It's not like they haven't tried to use this thing to explore the situation inside the Xinxing Chamber of Commerce, but when the mechanical spider approached the 1st floor of the Chamber of Commerce, the remote control signal there will be extremely strong interference. Apparently, the remnants of the heretical sect have placed high-power electromagnetic interference devices on the 1st floor or in the basement. Kaylan had already seen the design drawings of the Xinxing Chamber of Commerce headquarters building on the way here. In addition to the 8 floors above the ground, there are 2 basement floors underground. They didn't even set up interference with the biochemical laboratory on the 6th floor. Field. This means that the most important secret of the Xinxing Chamber of Commerce should be buried underground. Kaylan has notified people from the Research Institute, Crisis Management Department and ARC General Engineering Department, asking them to stand by at the bottom of the module floor where the Xinxing Chamber of Commerce headquarters building is located. If it really comes to the point where nothing can be done, they will choose to go directly from a passage was drilled underground, leading directly to the basement of Xinxing Chamber of Commerce. To be honest, I have never seen it. Aya paused, as if trying to find a suitable adjective, but after searching for a long time, she realized that her vocabulary was indeed a bit poor. I have never seen it. There have been monsters like this. She shared the footage captured by the microdrone with Kaylan. The corpse in the corridor had been devoured, and the imaginary image of scattered flesh and blood did not appear. The fusion larvae were very knowing how to cherish food. Even the blood beads scattered on the ground were sucked clean. Except for some traces of corrosion by digestive juices, there was no trace of blood on the ground. But the most eye-catching thing is the fusion larva itself. It had broken free from the corpse of the container and had eaten the corpse. Its size had now expanded several times, and it was nearly 3 meters tall, almost touching the ceiling of the corridor. As for the appearance of this monster, well, it looks like a novice programmer who has just learned modeling, haphazardly pieced together more than a dozen human body material packages, a mess of limbs interspersed and entangled together. A head that was half flesh and half white bones was pressed to the ground. What connected the head was not a neck, but a skinless thigh. Many organs are directly exposed outside the body. 3 still beating hearts are gathered together, enveloped in a bag of white fascia, and underneath is an unusually large lung lobe, which seems to be vaguely visible. The blood fluid flows in the tubes, from the three hearts to the lungs, and then flows back along another blood vessel. Kaylan couldn't decide for a while whether this was an internal circulation system or an extracorporeal circulation system like ECMO. Corrosion seeds need to breathe, Kaylan knows this, but like earthworms, this kind of thing can directly use the mucous membrane on the body surface to breathe. It can directly absorb oxygen from the air and water. Kaylan doesn't either. You know what role human organs like the heart and lungs can have on this fusion larvae. So far, the fusion larva has only eaten a few human corpses, so all the organs and limbs it has grown on it are human organs and limbs. Although the distribution of these organs and limbs is a bit messy, there are no any substantial variation. Kaylan even suspected that if these organs and limbs were cut off, maybe they could be used directly for human transplantation? I just don't know if this part of the material contains the genetic code of the fusion body itself. In addition to the human part, there are many tentacles extending from the gaps in the limbs. These tentacles are the body of the fusion body. They are not only weapons, but also organs of movement and eating. But just when Kaylan was about to observe for a while, Asano Akira suddenly reminded him, someone is coming up. Two people have reached the middle platform of the stairs. P.S. The number of subscriptions has dropped a lot recently. Even half of last month's subscriptions are gone. If you are still buying books, stop buying them now. In addition, I have already designed the ending, and it is finished. It's on the schedule according to the current progress. I will probably finish and open a new book during the National Day. As for the new book, to be honest, I kind of want to revise and rewrite the previous book, stepping through the flame, and add fantasy elements. I wonder what you think. Science fiction is too difficult to write, but fantasy is easy. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Enchenmi-san. Chapter 743. Only two people. After hearing the news, Kaylan not only didn't feel nervous, but actually breathed a sigh of relief. He was just about to think of a way to grab a tongue for torture, but before he could figure out how to do it, someone from the other party came to his door. Well, there are only two people. Judging from the pace, heartbeat, and breathing rhythm, they should be two level 3 to 4 enhanced people. Moreover, there is no creeping noise heard in their bodies. These two are not erosion container for seeds. Level 3 or 4 enhanced people can only be regarded as food delivery for the three of them. As the person in charge of the combat power of the three-person team, Asano Akira's actual combat power can no longer be used at all. Measured by the level of enhancement, even if the human body enhancement surgery or transformation surgery can break through to the 10th level, it is just a matter of one blow in front of him. And Kaylan is no longer the last crane tail in the hunting group with the lowest combat power. After losing his living armor, he retained physical strength roughly equivalent to that of a 9th level enhanced human. Now, he can kill anyone in the original 6 martial arts clan with his bare hands. If two of the opponents come together, it won't be too difficult to win. If it's 3 people, at least they won't be at a disadvantage. If there are 4 people, it won't be too difficult. You can look for opportunities to pull each other to defeat each other. If you face 5 people and delay the time to protect yourself and wait for support, it should be no problem. But if the opponent does not follow martial ethics and 6 people attack together, although they cannot win, at least they can escape if they run. Dropped. As for Aya, who has the weakest actual combat effectiveness in the 3-person team, her combat effectiveness has also been greatly improved after being replaced with the latest generation of experimental cyborg prosthetic body, although this is only her use of this prosthetic body. In the first actual combat, the data collected was not enough, but at least in terms of performance, it surpassed Victoria's prosthetic body in all aspects. Not to mention 3 people, any one of them can subdue the 2 approaching guys. What's more, there is no parasitic corrosive seed in these 2 people's bodies. It's completely because the professional brother mistakenly fell into the rhythm of black iron qualifying. Don't attack too harshly, remember to stay alive. Kaylan whispered to the two of them. By the way, Aya, did you bring the Verita serum? What's the truth serum? I remember I told you before, the Security Bureau doesn't have anything like that at all, and, as a member of the Crew Association, you should know better than me what results the Institute has achieved, right? I mean, the kind of potion that can make people fall into a semi-hypnotic state, so that they can answer whatever you ask. I remember that when I checked the interrogation files of the Security Bureau, this kind of potion was still used very frequently. That's the Su-3 hallucinogenic interrogation auxiliary drug. This thing is actually not as useful as you said. If the other party has received anti-interrogation training, such as often giving himself mental suggestions, setting false targets in his memory, etc., it's hard to find anything useful if you don't have the means. In addition, if the other party is an enhanced person above level 6, or has undergone drug-resistant transformation specifically for hallucinogenic drugs, this kind of drug will not work, Aya said. Su said quickly. At this time, even Kaylan could hear their footsteps. Don't talk so much useless nonsense, just tell me whether you brought it or not. Bring it? That's enough. Kaylan rolled his eyes at her. Remember to use it later. But this thing has to be used with polygraphs, psychological analysis teams and professional interrogators. If you directly inject people, even if you ask something, there is a high probability that it will be messed up or simply wrong, Aya explained. This is just a preliminary plan. If the other party is stubborn, then we can only act as a doctor. Kaylan suddenly raised his palm in the middle of his words. The steps at the stairs stopped. It was obvious that the opponent's vision must have crossed the 7th floor and saw the corpses of the guards lying in the corridor and the fusion larvae that were eating. What choice will they make? Should he step forward and control the fusion larvae, or should he turn around and run away? Kaylan felt that the second possibility was more likely. After all, two guys who only had the strength of 3rd and 4th level enhancers and did not have the seeds of parasitic erosion in their bodies could not be the opponents of the fusion body. Unless, the two of them have something in their hands that can specifically restrain the fusion body. Kaylan has decided that if these two people plan to turn around and run away, then they will take the initiative to catch these two people. Then, is that thing a mature seed? A trembling voice came vaguely from the direction of the stairs. Yes, another voice said. This voice was relatively calm. The initial state of the seed is similar to that of ordinary erosion seeds, but depending on what it eats, its body will undergo corresponding changes. Look at it the way it looks now, it should be the integration of human genes from those guarding corpses. But this monster doesn't look like a human being, does it? Look carefully. Aren't they all human hands and feet? There are also heads and internal organs. It's just that the combination is completely disrupted. I have even seen weirder looking seeds before. From the conversation between the two, Kaylan and the others could learn that the remnants of the heretical sect not only knew about the existence of fusions, but were also deliberately cultivating such monsters. What made Kaylan feel uneasy was that this was obviously not the only one within the Xinxing Chamber of Commerce. A fusion. Before this, they had already cultivated several such monsters. I just don't know where those mature fusions were sent by this group of remnants. It would be fine if it were imprisoned at the headquarters of the Xinxing Chamber of Commerce, but at worst they would be killed with thunderous means. But if they had moved these fusions to an unknown corner of the wilderness, with the growth and mutation speed of the fusions, I'm afraid that in a few years, Ark will face a super monster whose combat power is not weaker than that of the prehistoric species. Then what are we going to do now? So many containers have been killed by it. With the strength of the two of us, we can't defeat it at all, right? Asked the somewhat panicked voice at the beginning. Go and inform boss. It seems that something went wrong during the experiment, and the 4th seed matured ahead of schedule. We are not responsible for this, so don't panic. 4th seed? Ian's heart moved. It seems that this group of people had already cultivated a 3-head fusion before this. I just don't know if numbers 1 to 3, which they didn't mention, survived.